So in the previous video, we did the kind of in-depth part of this series, which was building the tasks area and the projects area, linking them together and being able to add tasks from within projects. In this video, we're going to rebuild the home screen, which is where we pull all of the existing work that we've done into one place. And we'll also build the archive of the app, the place where you can see past projects and tasks. Let's have a look at the fully finished template. On the home screen, we have a detailed screen layout with a bunch of inline lists. And down at the bottom, we see an area that's really specific to the user. So I'm logged in as Tamsin, but if I log in as Marie, we'll see different items down here. And then of course, in the app menu, we have the archive area. So we can see completed projects and completed tasks as well. Okay, so let's rebuild this. Let's go over to the rebuild app, and I'm gonna need a new tab. And that tab is gonna be based off of just it can be any sheet in your Google Sheet that has data in, but I like to have sort of a dedicated sheet that I call my home sheet. It doesn't have to have anything in it. If you just look at the data that I have here, the home sheet in my Google Sheet just says home in it so that Glide picks it up, but that is it. And then I'm going to choose the icon of a home, and then I'm going to pull that to the top so that it's on the far left. And then if we go to the layout area, I'm going to choose detail screen as the layout. And now we can configure this screen with components. So the difference between the screens that we've done so far, the category screen and like say the tasks screen, is that they are lists. They're list layouts, right? But just like kind of the open project screen, do you remember we configured that with the details screen? The home screen is just going to be a details screen, and it has no sort of data that's inherently part of the home screen, but it does use inline lists, which then pull data from other sheets onto it. So if you want to display data from multiple sheets in your app, then you're going to need detail screens. Okay, so I'm going to delete this title component, and the first thing that we want is an inline list. In fact, we're going to use a lot of inline lists here, and we're going to be doing categories first. So I'm going to choose categories, and we were on the tiles layout. So I'm going to choose tiles, and the first thing I'm going to do, is change the title here to be categories. And then I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to make this a horizontal scrolling list. Next thing we need to do is make these cards not as wide. So I'm going to change the tiles per row, which doesn't make sense necessarily when it's horizontal scrolling, but it does when it's vertical. And then the tile shape needs to be a bit bigger, so 4:3. And then the last thing I believe I need to do is the position of the text in the text styling is the overlay. And we can trigger the see all screen for this, but at the moment we don't have categories over 12, so it doesn't really matter what you want to do, but that might be relevant to your app. So I'm going to go back now. Let's just test this out. If I click on one of these, it works absolutely fine, obviously. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to duplicate this inline list because we want to work now with the open projects. Okay, so I'm going to choose the projects sheet, and I'm going to change the layout to list. And before I do anything else, remember we want to show only open projects. So I'm going to add the relevant filter. So I'm going to add a filter where the status is not completed. Okay, and that is going to hide a bunch of items that are completed. So the next thing we want to do is configure this list to look like we had it in the fully finished template. So the way that this list is configured, and again, you can do this however you want in your app, is that we have the category icon for the project just to kind of give an indication of that item, and it sort of makes it look slightly different to this list down here. And then we have the title of the project and then the due date. So, and that would be, of course, the same for the see all screen. So let's go to the rebuild app and let's configure that in the same way. So I'm going to make sure that the title is the project name. I'm going to make the details be the due on title that we created earlier. And it might make sense to have the project owner's image. We show that elsewhere in the app, but I'm actually going to, just for sort of some beautification, make it the category icon. Okay. The last thing is, of course, we're getting all of the items in this list. So we want to restrict items. We only want to show a few items. So I'm going to only show 3 items here. So that will then trigger the see all screen. And remember that the see all screen is configured independently. So when we go on to this screen, we're going to have to make sure that the category icon is the same and the project name. So that's good. Great. So we need 2 more inline lists, but these are going to be specific to the user. Okay. So I'm going to duplicate this list here. Oh, this is getting a bit confusing actually here because we've got some titles. We've got categories. So let me just change this so it's obvious what we're doing. So all open projects. So this is not specific to the user. But then this one is going to be my open projects. Okay. So what we want to do in this list is go into, because we're looking at this one down here, this one here, we're going to click into it and we're going to go to the features panel and we're going to add another filter. So we already have status is not completed. We want an and project owner is, and then we'll choose from the drop down menu here, and we'll choose from the user profiles sheet, or the current logged in user, is the name of the current logged in user. So what we've done there is we've said in this condition, show all of the items where the status is not completed, so open projects, and then only show items that where the name of the project owner for that item is the same as the logged in user, right? So that condition will create the user specific view here. So we're currently logged in as Christina at glideapps.com, but let's log in as Marie and see what happens. We see other stuff coming in, okay? Okay, so we've got one more list to do, and this is going to be the tasks for this specific user. So I'm going to duplicate this list again, and I'm going to go straight into it and change it to the tasks sheet. So that's showing from the tasks. But when we duplicated this list, we've also duplicated the filters that we had from the previous list, which no longer makes sense because those filters were based on the projects sheet, whereas actually we're now looking at the tasks sheet. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to change this so that the status is not true. Okay, that means that the status won't be ticked, or the Boolean won't be true, right? So we then need another status as well, which is going to be the user specific thing, and it's going to be task owner, not project owner in this case, is, and then we'll choose the drop down menu, scroll down to the user profile and choose name, okay? So then obviously the last thing that we need to do is change the layout to be checklist, okay? And I don't think we showed the details on the fully finished template. So then we can just change this to tasks. And now we're going to have two lists at the bottom here, my open projects and my open tasks, which are specific to each user. Let's just test it out. So all user specific stuff. The final thing that we want to do is kind of get some breathing room in here, because these are all quite squashed together. If we look at the fully finished template, there's kind of a little bit more space between each of these components. And we're doing that with the separator component. Now, the separator component used to just be a simple line, but we updated it recently to have the ability to just show space, obviously. So, and we have a number of different sizing options, small, medium, or large. So let's go over to our rebuild, and I'm going to add a separator component. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to make it small, and I'm going to get rid of the line divider. And now what I can do is I can separate things in this app a little bit. I can add a bit more breathing room, and I'm just going to duplicate it a few times to add some space in between our inline lists. So it's kind of easier for people to see that these lists are separate lists. And you can, of course, choose the sizing that you want. So that is our home screen. Let's now have a look at the archive area of the fully finished template. I'm going to go over to that now, and I'm going to go into the app menu, and I'm going to just click on the completed tasks tab. And obviously this tab is this one here, and it's reading from the tasks sheet. But we have, again, a filter going on where the status is true. So just to show you again, we're reading from this sheet, the tasks sheet, but we're only showing items like this item here and these items here where this box is checked, right? So let's go to our rebuild, and I'm going to go over to the tabs area, and I'm going to add a new tab, which is going to be based off our tasks sheet, okay? So this is something that people sometimes forget, is that you can obviously show the same sheet as many times as you want in your app in different places and configure it in different ways. It seems like a very simple thing, but a lot of people don't necessarily think about it. So I'm going to call this completed tasks. And of course, at the moment, it's not completed tasks because we haven't set a filter. So let's quickly do that. I'm going to go to the features panel of this list, and I'm going to add a filter. And this is a really simple filter where the status is true. Okay, so we're going to see all the finished tasks, and I put in a bunch of example finished tasks so that it can be obvious when building this app. The next thing that we need to do is go over to layout and change this layout to a checklist. And of course, obviously all of the items are going to be checked. You could decide whether you want to leave that as a checklist or not. Maybe you don't want to be able to uncheck items that you've checked in the past, or maybe you do. Maybe you want to go in here and you want to say, hey, I actually didn't buy balloons, so I'm going to uncheck it, and then it won't live in here. It's totally up to you. But obviously we need to configure the data section here. So we've got the task name, And we don't want the project ID. We'll probably want the due date. Or maybe we want it empty. What did we have in the fully finished template? We had the due date. So let's just choose that there. So that is the completed task, really quick. Let's go to the app menu again. And what we want to do is add a new tab, and it's going to be the project. And again, this is going to be completed projects. So I'm going to go over to the layout section for this. I'm going to add a filter, and it's going to be where status column is completed. And we're going to see an example finished project. Let's just go to the layout here and configure this. I think what we want, let's look at the fully finished template. What did we do? We had the icon, the category icon. So I'm going to choose the category icon as the icon. I'm going to choose the due date as the details, and then the title is going to be the project name. Okay. And this is going to work exactly the same. We're going to have exactly the same detail screen, of course, for this one. So that is the tab section. Let's pull these into the app menu, completed projects and completed tasks, and we have the work that we've done. So this rounds off the fully finished template rebuild of the Tasks and Project Manager app. I hope there was enough interesting concepts in here for you to be able to rebuild your own template specifically to the way that you work. And if any of the concepts that we've gone over are tricky for you, you can always head over to glideapps.com/learn.